This video is a replay of a trade I took today. Now, it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I am not a financial advisor, and trading entails risk. Just because I got these results today doesn't mean that I can get these every day, nor that you can. Remember, the entire premise of the investing project and the $1 million experiment is that I am not an expert, and yet I am learning how to do this. So for heaven's sake, don't just blindly copy me. Instead, find a mentor, someone who is an expert, and join their community. Pay for their mentorship. This approach has worked very well for me, and it likely will for you too. So use this video partly as education and partly as inspiration. After all, if I can learn this, you can too. Hello, folks. So another good day today. Not as good as yesterday, but still a decent day. We had not as much of a dramatic move as yesterday when the markets had opened up extremely stretched. However, we had a sell-off, and not much of one if you look at the major indexes like the S&P and the the Nasdaq and the S&P. But over here in the Russell in the YM, you can see quite a bit of sell-off on the 5-minute, even on the 15-minute. You can see 5 out of 6 bars, and this one almost doesn't really count because it's just a tiny bit of green, but 5 out of the last 6 were red, and it was starting to look, like we're starting to stretch a bit, and we're substantially below the previous day's low, which all of which is from a location standpoint pretty reasonable. I mean, not irresistible, but pretty reasonable. So what I was looking for here, if you look at the NQ and at the ES here, you can start to see the NQ is trying to break out here. Now, I don't trade breakouts per se, but I know that I don't know this, but it's generally the case that if NQ and ES are breaking out, that will provide extra fuel to YM or Russell. But the YM in particular was the one that was responding last in this whole thing. So I was looking for an excuse to get into YM. And so what I ended up doing is, as these were starting to break out, I put a buy order in. I was at 52,144, which is right about there, which is just above this 5-minute. In fact, it's above the last two 5-minute candles. And so we let this, it went another 643, 644 Pacific. I got in at 647, so it's just about to head up. And again, I didn't really want to wait for the first green candle. I put that in because I felt when it does go, it's going to go quickly. And so this was already starting to be a positive for a second. This is already starting to be a nice wick here, and looking like the setup that I want. And if you zoom out here, you can see that, so I'm in now at this point. When I adjusted my stop down here, and by the way, I sized down to 4 contracts instead of 6 because I knew I needed to increase my the amount of risk to get down below this. Actually, I'm missing something. There's another important point here. If you look out at the, let's look at the, what do I want to look at here? Let's look at the daily and see where we are. I'm going to put in a level right about here. Okay, and I'm going to copy that level over to here. Did that come up through? Yeah, no, that's not what I wanted to see. I think maybe I need to look at this on the hourly. That might be it. It might be that I was looking for a level that was a little bit below where I am now. What did I see when I was looking at this? Oh, this right here. Yes. So this is where the most recent support was. And I knew that there was quite a bit of support. If you look on the hourly, there's quite a number of touches right in this area. So if I copied this over into here, you can see where it's pretty close to where I am. In fact, let me copy it in here. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to place my stop below this because obviously there are buyers here. That's why this stopped going lower multiple times during the previous day. So you can see a whole bunch of hourly wicks. So with that in mind, I needed to expand the risk I was taking, which is why I reduced from 6 contracts down to 4. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled action. And so this ended up languishing a little in this space, but it did eventually head up. And by the way, I did do the thing that I talked about yesterday and the day before. I put the trade on, and then I went next door into my workshop and started puttering around and just didn't look at it. And, you know, for the second day in a row, that worked well. And you can see, by the way, when you look at the NQ starting to break out and the ES just about to break out, as soon as these start to go, you see the rocket fuel behind the YM. So after 100 points in the right direction, it pulled all the stops to even, and then it started to trail half the contracts behind the high there. And so I pop back and forth from my workshop every so often and just check on how things were doing. And what I did is after the first target was triggered for $200, which is coming up shortly, I came back in here and raised my stop to just behind that first 5 minute there, my stop on the last two contracts. So just give it a second there. It's just going to trigger. Come along. Even in the replay, it makes me wait for it. Come on, dude. Let's go. All right. So now I'm looking at this and I'm raising my stop to trail the last 5 minute. And I think I ended up, well, actually that's not, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. I gave it a bit more room. Once it had started to go up, now I'm placing it behind the various 5 minutes. This made it almost trigger, but not quite. And so I kept following this along with each of the 5 minute candles. Now I may end up missing on this last one here. Let's just see if it gets up there. God, you know, so really, really close, really close. All right. And I think this is where I got taken out, something like that. Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, so I'm out. So came very, very close to the full $500 full ride on these two targets, but it didn't quite get there. It was just a few points off. However, I did manage to capture 418 of the potential 500 there. So it was a very good trade. And once again, don't mess with it. And you know, as long as it's, and this is the important thing about understanding that this is a legitimate trade setup. You know, it was very close to that level of support that I showed you. It was well below the previous day's low. I gave it enough room and I put the stop below that support. So I had to size down in order to accommodate that and not blow up my risk level. And then just leave it alone. Don't look at it. In fact, I think this works better for me and for my mental health generally. Don't look at it, because as it spends its initial time sort of you know, flirting with a loss before deciding that it's actually heading north, that's actually stressful, and I don't really need to experience that. Once this trade's on, I can let it do its thing, and I've found that that's worked very, very well this week, as I've had the best week I've ever had in the $1 Million Experiment, doing exactly that. Anyway, there we are, $418 for the day, and that's a very nice way to wrap up the week.